Blog Talk Radio. Welcome to episode number 113 of Thyroid Nation Radio Live Talk Show and Podcast. I'm Dana Bowman, founder of Thyroid Nation.
And I'm Tiffany Milanich of GratefulGarden.biz.
Today we are talking with certified nutritional therapy practitioner, author, blogger, and autoimmune protocol guru, Mickey Trescott. We're going to be talking to her about elimination diets, nutrition, recipes, batch cooking, and successful thyroid eating. We've been waiting for a long time to have her on, so we are really, really excited.
Yes, we are. And it looks like she is already with us, so let's get this Thyroid Nation thriving. Help us, Mickey! Good morning.
Hey, guys. How's everything going?
Great.
Pretty good. A little toasty here in Joshua Tree, but other than that.
And where are you calling from, Mickey?
I'm calling in from the northern end of the Willamette Valley in Oregon, where we have our first cloudy day in, 3 months. It's feeling like fall here.
Ah, now that's a lovely thing I can wrap my head around. Temperature-wise, where are you guys at right now?
Oh, it's pretty warm for us, high 70s. So it's still definitely summer, but it's been really hot here, which has been really unseasonal. We saw 106 degrees a few weeks ago, so we're definitely feeling cool. I'm sure you guys are used to that.
Yeah, that's
I'm
well,
loving.
Not so much for you anymore in Colorado. You're pretty cool now.
I'm loving it. Well, it's actually just been supposedly what everybody's saying is a strange year. I don't know. I think the weather just did it because it knew I was moving here from Costa Rica and it wanted me to like it. So I mean, it's been brilliant, really. I mean, I don't even know, 90 maybe a couple of times. It's just been, I don't want to rub it in or anything, but it's been brilliant.
Yeah. Okay, we can change the subject, ladies, because I'm pining for the fall.
I mean,
we're smoking here.
It's funny. I have to tell you guys, it's funny because I'll be talking with Jenny, my partner, and we're doing a new project, and she'll be laughing at us because we say we're cold, and she's like, "God, you guys have been saying it's cold a lot lately," and I'm thinking, I know, it's like 69 or 70. Can you believe it? She's like, okay, that's just not funny. I mean, she's in Montana, so yeah, that's not really cold. So.
Well, we desperately need your help, Mickey. We need some tips and tricks, and we do make it work. But first off, we always love to hear, and you have quite the story. So a little bit about you and how you got into what you do.
Yeah, so, my story is definitely, I will spare you guys the nitty-gritty details, but basically, when I was 26 years old, so now, 6 years or so ago, I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's and celiac disease after about a year of searching for some answers to some unexplained health issues, starting with a seizure that I had on Christmas Day the year before. And, the story that you guys probably have yourselves or, many of your listeners have, I went to the doctor. They told me that I was fine. It was all in my head. I was too young. I was too thin to have thyroid problems, even though I knew as my symptoms became more clear that is what I was dealing with was thyroid issues. So, I was constantly dismissed until I really learned how to advocate for myself, found that doctor number 6 who was actually willing to run the appropriate lab work and who gave me the diagnosis. But at that point, they said, your lab work is normal and there's nothing we can do for you, so go on your merry way. And I was just, at that point, just devastated that I got to that point. What I really thought I needed was a diagnosis, and I got it, and it didn't change anything. I actually got a lot sicker. So the few months after my diagnosis was when my health crisis was really in full swing. I lost my job because I was so tired I couldn't get out of bed and even go to work. And I kept going to work, and finally they said, you know what, we can tell something's up and you really need to deal with it, and we're really sorry, we really support you, but you need some help. And I started experiencing more symptoms, so more than the thyroid stuff, which for me was the cold hands and feet, the extreme fatigue, not even being able to go up a flight of stairs, for instance, the insomnia. That turned into some more like neurological stuff. So I started slurring my speech. I started having numbness on the left side of my body, left side of my face, burning pain that would keep me awake at night, that would spread from my toes up to my knees. It literally felt like the bottom half of my body was on fire. And pleurisy, which is inflammation of the lining of the lungs. So when I would take a deep breath, it just was like incredibly painful. And so I, went back to my doctors. I got a bunch of specialists involved. They all were thinking that maybe I was developing lupus or multiple sclerosis. I had a symptom picture there. I had some imaging, MRI, and nothing really came back clear. But they said, with 2 autoimmune diseases under your belt, it's highly likely that you are probably have another one. We just need to wait until you have these symptoms for maybe 3 to 6 more months before we will give you an official diagnosis. And that was the moment where I was like, what? How did I get here? And what do I need to do to get out?
Right, right.
And I had been vegan for 10 years. I had been working as a chef in a past life. Actually, at the moment I was diagnosed, I was working in coffee service in Seattle. But I wasn't a stranger to a healthy lifestyle and healthy eating. So the whole situation, I thought that kind of stuff happened to people that were like eating McDonald's and drinking boxed wine. And like, right. I wasn't that person. I was eating whole foods. Even as a vegan, I didn't eat processed like tofu. I thought that was too processed for me. So when I asked my doctors, could my diet have anything to do with this, they said, oh, you eat this great low-fat diet. This has nothing to do with what you're experiencing. If anything, your diet is helping you. And it wasn't until I really reached the bottom that I started to think, maybe this diet stuff does have something to do with it, and I'm going to look into it. And so that was the turning point where I discovered ancestral diets. I discovered elimination diets. I discovered why maybe eating meat was missing from my diet and how that could be nourishing to someone with multiple autoimmune diseases. And when I went back to work, I really had to rethink my priorities as far as if I go back to work as a cook, how am I going to deal with my food sensitivities and touching and tasting different foods? And so I went back to school for nutrition, and that's kind of where all of the blog and the book and the work that I do now came out of, just that huge life change that came from having a crazy health crisis and working myself out of it. So that's the nutshell.
Okay, so when you had, we're at the doctors and they were like, well, we're going to wait for 6 months. What did you actually do at that point to like make yourself feel better? I mean, were you taking anything? I mean, what did they suggest? I'm floored that you had to go through all of that and then come through this self-realization. I'm just kind of thinking, wow.
I was young and I was terrified. So, and I didn't look sick. And I think that right. a lot of people with autoimmune disease struggle with this. And having both Hashimoto's and celiac, with Hashimoto's, we tend to gain weight, and with celiac tends to present as wasting. So I think both diseases were not uncovered as quickly as they could have been because they were a little bit working against each other to make me kind of look like a normal person. So when I went in, I got a lot of, you're just depressed and this is all in your head and it's anxiety and you're a hypochondriac and that kind of talk. Really, they were presenting it as maybe I'm making a bigger deal about my symptoms than I'm really experiencing. I was dismissed. Had multiple talks where they would bring in my family and they would confront me about having an eating disorder. And my husband had to be like, no, and I really do think that a lot of it was just being a young person experiencing what I was experiencing and not having a lot of outward anything to show for it is not supported by our medical system, you know.
So that's crazy. I can't believe they did that.
Yeah, and they're just, you know, it's not uncommon since I've shared my story online and through my podcast, and I have people writing to me all the time, young people in their 20s, a lot of women just saying, oh my gosh, I've had the same thing happen, and even to the point where I have a lot of friends that are now, you know, we're in our early 30s, but, you know, late 20s started having similar issues where they would go into the doctor and say, you know, I think I have this thyroid thing, my friend has it, and because I noticed symptoms of Hashimoto's in them, and they would be dismissed until they finally did get that blood test and they did have those antibodies and they did have Hashimoto's, you know, so we're not crazy.
No, we're not crazy.
No, we're not.
Did you by chance have Epstein-Barr as well, Mickey? Just curious with that crushing fatigue you were mentioning. I was just curious.
A lot of, it's kind of a hot topic. I've been tested for Epstein-Barr. I've never had like a high viral load, no like acute background with that. It's never been a part of my journey with that.
Right.
I know a lot of people find that that's a big root cause for them, but not in my experience. No, I've been tested for it. Same thing with Lyme.
Wow.
Oh, that's good. Right.
And did you have trouble? Do you look back now? You know, because I know you were diagnosed celiac quite late. So do you look back now and realize that this has been part of your journey? Did you have troubles as a child with different things? And
so as a celiac, I still to this day never have gut symptoms when I get glutened.
Wow.
I have neurological symptoms. And this is something that doctors are unwilling really to accept, that there are celiacs out there that have a neurological presentation or neurological reaction to gluten. And that is my experience. And I've talked to so many celiacs that say, oh, yeah, that's me too. So I didn't get the diarrhea. I didn't get the stomach aches. I never had any of that as a kid or as an adult. And still to this day, if I get glutened, I know because I start not being able to form sentences and talk properly. And then about the next day or two, I'll start losing the feeling on my left side of my face. And then that's when I know. Also emotional, I have an extreme emotional reaction. The last time that I got glutened, I was trying to cook a pork chop. And I had sushi for lunch, and that's where I got glutened. And then for dinner, I was trying to cook a pork chop. And I steamed it I didn't get the pan hot enough. And for any of you guys that cook, you'll know that, you know, when you're trying to roast a pork chop, you're trying to get it really hot and get a nice crust. And I'm very particular about it. So I didn't do it right. The pan wasn't hot enough. I just steamed this pork chop. It looked awful and gray. And I just started bawling, just out of control. I was on the floor. It was still on the stove, burning. And my husband comes down and he's like, honey, I'm so sorry, but I think we got glutened. This is what's going on here.
So
and
easy
and
to
often
tell for
it's him.
God.
Yeah,
he knows.
Yes, exactly. But that's the kind of reaction that I get when I'm glutened. It's not gut related, which I think threw the doctors off for a long time. That's where the whole maybe you have MS thing came from, was my reaction neurologically to the food that I was eating.
Tiffany has the same thing, Mickey. She gets serious neurological issues when she gets glutened. She does. I don't.
It turning my brain off. And this is going to sound absolutely terrible. And you girls feel free to just sear me up. Just tie me up, light me on fire. I'm okay with that.
Okay.
But I honestly have to admit, I'm sure that I'm not the only one out there, ladies, but that has been, Mickey, believe it or not, that the reason that I have not gone gluten-free. I have 4 kids. I have a just insane busy lifestyle, and between dance and baseball and school and working, and there, and the kicker has been that not all gluten shuts my brain off. That's the thing. This is where, and Tom O'Brien, I'm sure he just like shakes his head like, my God, this child is just, she has no brain. I'm sure of it. But certain, when I encounter certain foods, literally my children say it's like shutting my brain off, because my kids will snap. They're like, Mom, Dad, Mom ate something, didn't work very well, But it doesn't happen with all the time. Does that make sense? So it's like a hit and miss. And I haven't had digestive issues, which is, I'm in the same category as you, where it's all neurological. Literally, it's just all in my head. That sounds like a poke fun, but it's not. It's not funny when your brain turns off.
Yeah, it's hard to measure like the motivation and compliance when you have a reaction to a food. I'm sure we'll talk about elimination diets later, but I have issues with the tiniest amount of gluten, like cross-contamination level, but I have that happen with other foods, like nightshade family foods, like tomatoes and peppers and stuff. In some situations, they really affect me, and others they don't. And what I might say is that, the form or the stress level or whatever else is going on in your life, how your biology is at that moment, is causing the reaction or not, because we're all on a different spectrum with each food as far as what we can tolerate and when. And, I would probably just avoid the gluten if you can, but if you don't notice it all the time, it makes it that much harder to avoid it all the time.
Right. Well, and I'll ask you, because I literally consider you the autoimmune paleo. You're the guru. You are the person to ask.
I'm no guru.
I get significant depression within about, I'm talking, and I'm usually very, very even-keeled, pretty positive, and literally like 48 hours or less into removing gluten, which of course takes a lot of carbohydrates out. I'm a food-controlled diabetic, so I only eat about 30 to 40 carbohydrates per meal, so it's not like I carb load or anything like that. But when I remove them, I get significant depression. I wish somebody could like videotape it or follow me or something. And I think there's kind of a syndrome in there. It's not necessarily, some people say, well, that's candida die-off and it's all these different things. I'm like, yeah, no, this is a whole different ballgame. But when I had my genetic testing done, I don't convert and eliminate, serotonin and dopamine and all these things. I have all these genetic SNPs. And I wonder if that's why it's so hard for me. Like, it's not just a little depression. Like, it's I don't want to get out of bed. I don't want to, and that's not normal for me. So one of these days when Ben Lynch is on here, we're going to grill his brain on stuff like that. Because, again, I know I'm not the only one who goes through that. Now, have you ever heard or experienced anybody that's had those issues with going paleo?
Yeah, a lot of people have withdrawal to foods that, they fulfill some sort of, biological role in our bodies that might even be like an addictive cycle, and kind of breaking up with them. There's definitely people that have reactions that are really bad when they remove foods that are bad for them, which doesn't sound intuitive. But I definitely think that that's possible, and I've encountered that in some of my clients. What I would say, too, is, sometimes it gets worse before it gets better, but if it doesn't seem to be getting better, then I would look into what is it about that food that you need to replace. Is it those carbs? That would probably be the most obvious thing. And if I were working with a client, I would suggest that they get the same amount of starchy carbohydrate from a different food. So that might be like cassava or taro or yuca or plantain. Sweet potato doesn't work for some people. It's a little bit more sweet than starchy, but troubleshooting that.
Sweet potato drops my blood sugars very quickly. That's the kicker.
Yeah,
it's like,
because it's so sweet, so you're looking for something that is more starchy, and I think if you're replacing bread, where I would start is cassava. Have you ever had cassava?
I have not, no. Mm-mm.
Yeah.
This is why I need the Autoimmune Paleo cookbook. I just need to stick within the recipes,
I don't
Tiffany.
have cassava recipes in that book just because I didn't know about cassava back then. But cassava is traditionally used in like Central and South American cooking. It's a very native food for them. It's a root, and it's very, very starchy. So it makes a really great replacement for bread. So that's where I would start. You know, if you want to make, like, cassava tortillas are super easy to make with just cassava flour, a little arrowroot. If you can do egg, you can put egg. You can also make them egg-free, maybe a little olive oil, coconut milk, something to kind of thin it up. But you can make, you know, pancakes out of them, crepes, you know, whatever you want, and it's super easy to use.
That sounds awesome. I mean, I think that's the thing. It's like the depression and the fatigue. It's not like I'm just refusing to do it. Does that make sense? Like, I know that I should do it. I know that it's very important, but for me, it's just been an enormous challenge. It's like, how do you take a depressed, fatigued mom, you know what I mean, and make her functional? I mean, my kid, I'm like, oh. So one of these days,
it's troubleshooting. It's not as easy as just an elimination. You have to troubleshoot what you're adding in place and figure out what a good replacement is, and, you know, all of the reasons why you might be feeling the way you feel because of that food.
Well, you just mentioned what we're going to jump into, elimination. But before we get to that, I wanted to ask you, cassava, is it something that you can find easily in most stores? Because I haven't ever tried it myself, so I'm just wondering if you know.
Yeah, so cassava, I think right now Whole Foods just started carrying it, so you will likely find it in like a Whole Foods, Natural Grocers, and Natural Grocery Store. You know, Sprouts might have it. I might ask at somewhere like Sprouts if they don't have it. They can probably get it. They probably don't have it at a regular, like, Safeway, but they also sell it online. So Amazon has it, Thrive Market has it, and my favorite brand is Otto's cassava flour. And they're great. Their quality is really high, and it's just a staple that I keep now for, you know, just replacing it. I don't make bread out of it, but having, you know, like tortillas and pancakes and that kind of stuff every once in a while, it just makes you feel like you're having a little treat, you know, and that's why I have it. Pie crust, it makes great pie crust.
Really?
Otto, OTTO''S, Otto's. Okay, got it.
Yeah, and it's so starchy that you can actually get like a flaky pie crust. I hate coconut flour. I mean, I'm just over coconut flour baked goods, coconut flour cookies.
You're over
coconutted. Just coconut. I love coconut oil. I love coconut milk, but like coconut flour, that is like the worst part, I think, of the coconut. And a lot of people really don't even tolerate it very well. A lot of people, it makes them bloated, and it just doesn't behave the way you want it to behave when you're cooking it. So this cassava flour is just that, it really has that texture. It's super nice. It's not, you know, it doesn't have gluten in it, so it's not going to do what a glutinous flour will, but it's very nice and starchy, and it'll get that kind of flakiness that we all like.
Now, I'm just jumping in. Autoimmune Paleo is no nuts, correct, in the beginning? So tell us, Mickey, what is Autoimmune Paleo?
Yeah, so the autoimmune protocol, or autoimmune paleo diet, people call it either, it's an elimination diet. So I'm sure a lot of your listeners are familiar with elimination diets, but this one is specific to the foods that cause inflammation for people with autoimmune disease. So this is all researched by Dr. Sarah Ballantyne on the heels of a lot of the paleo authors like Mark Sisson and Chris Kresser and Rob Wolf, who kind of put forth some ideas and started talking about maybe some of these foods aren't so great for people with autoimmune disease. Sarah really took that idea, researched it. She has like 2,000 scientific references in her book, The Paleo Approach, and developed a protocol for it. And this is what I did in the depths of my illness, was I started eliminating a bunch of foods. So on the elimination phase, we take out grains, beans, legumes, dairy, eggs, nuts, seeds, nightshade family vegetables, and all thickeners, chemicals, sugar, alcohol, fake sugar type substances. So basically all you're eating, there are plenty of foods left over, but what you're eating are natural, healthy fats, vegetables, roots, meat, fish, shellfish, just the basics. And you do that with 100% compliance for at least 30 days, sometimes up to 90 days, so 1 to 3 months. And then you reintroduce foods one by one on a schedule that Sarah has in her book and I have in my books, in order from least likely to cause a problem and highest nutrient density. So you're getting foods that really you want back in your diet earliest. So those are like those nuts and seeds. And then you go down to the foods that are most likely to cause a problem and least nutrient dense. And for some people, those are called stage 4 foods. They might not be able to reintroduce them. Like in that process, you figure out, like for me, dairy is a no-go at any level, even ghee, where all the casein's removed, doesn't work for me. Some people might be able to get to butter, or they might be able to get to hard cheese or yogurt, and that works for them, but actual milk doesn't work for them. They might find that, eggs from pastured chickens works for them, but eggs that are conventional from the store don't work for them. So the reintroduction part, a lot of people focus on AIP as this big elimination diet that people do forever. It's not forever. That's a huge misconception. It's just a tool you use to figure out what foods work for you, and then you're on this custom diet that what your core foods are, what kind of those gray area foods are, and what your no foods are.
That's great. That's great to know.
That's
because
awesome.
People really do stay on it for way too long. I mean, I had a friend who was on it for 4 years, and it's good to hear you especially say it.
And the people that have been advocating this, I think at the beginning, that misconception came from people who don't have autoimmune disease that said, hey, I saw this research that shows that this food might be bad for people with autoimmune disease. And in the beginning, there was no guidance on reintroduction. That's something that came from Sarah's work. So Sarah and I did the autoimmune protocol ourselves before we started writing about it. So we were kind of navigating, trying to figure out what to do. So in the early days, it was more of a like, well, if you have autoimmune disease, try not eating these foods. And back then, we were all so sick that we were like, if this works forever, great.
Right. Right.
I could never look at a potato again if it meant that, I could speak and get out of bed, But then once it got refined, we started to figure out that these reintroductions, not only is that really important to not develop an unhealthy relationship with food, to not develop a burdened heart and mind when it comes to figuring out what your relationship with food, that gets tricky for a lot of people when they're restricting for a long time. And a lot of these foods that we remove initially are actually good, nutrient-dense, healthy foods that have nutrients that we want, like eggs are a perfect example. They're a very nutritious food if they work for you. A lot of nuts and seeds have a lot of great minerals, and they can be a really on-the-go protein source for people. So there definitely are some foods that some people can introduce and other people can't, but most people have a little wiggle room there.
Well, and I think when you reintroduce it, I think there's a lot of people who eat foods, I eat a ton of eggs and nuts. That's a huge, protein source for me. And if I don't have eggs in the morning, you might as well just stick a fork in me and lay me down in bed because my day's not going to go. But I think, so many times people continue to eat foods that may not necessarily be good for them. Like they sort of talk themselves into it. Does that make sense? And then when they remove them, they're like, oh, my God, I feel like a different person, or, I just lost all this weight, or, because I removed this inflammation of this food that was literally making me sick, but I was so focused on the protein or the benefits or, the lutein or whatever it is, you know what I'm saying? And they keep going.
Yeah.
Like 30 days.
Yeah, and that's what
30 days.
What the elimination phase does is it clears the slate. And, without those eggs for breakfast, you have to figure out, you eat meat patties or you eat a soup or things that people think are just so unconventional. They're like, soup for breakfast. I can't even tell you how weird that sounds to so many people. And they say, well, I'm used to breakfast foods. And until it's the leftover slice of pie or leftover pizza, they'll gladly eat that for breakfast. But soup is weird, right?
That is weird.
But soup,
creatures of habit. I mean, people get in these ruts of things, of eating habits.
Well, and excuses too, So, after 30 days of eating this way and maybe trying the soup for breakfast, I think soup is a perfect breakfast because you have your protein, you have your bone broth, you have your easily digestible, simmered vegetables. That is what my body wants. First thing in the morning, it wants something that is easily digestible with protein, fat, and a little bit of complex carbohydrates to fuel me for the day. That is it. And after doing that, maybe for a month, people feel so good and they realize, wow, when I eat a real breakfast with meat and vegetables, I'm not hungry all day. I don't have that blood sugar crash. I'm not grabbing energy drinks and coffee. Then they realize, even if they do the reintroductions and maybe they kind of reintroduce things too fast or kind of go back to the way they were eating, at least they know how good it can be, and that's motivation to try to get back there. You know what I mean?
Right.
I love that. 30 days.
30
I
days.
Can do it.
I can do it. I'm gonna
digestible.
I'm gonna be a test
doable.
monkey. I'm gonna figure it out. It's doable. So for my blood sugar control over so many years, I've really stuck within a certain protein to carbohydrate ratio. Do you guys, a misconception in paleo is that it's so much meat, that you're consuming, over 150 grams of protein a day. Is that true, or is that a myth?
Some people might do it. Everyone, the way that, what I actually really like about paleo and this kind of ancestral style way of eating, including AIP, is that it allows for a lot of variation. There isn't any macronutrient that's you have to eat a lot of fat. There's the keto people, and then there's people where on the end of the spectrum like me, and especially experts like Sarah Ballantyne, who really advocate for a lot of vegetables. I eat more vegetables now than I did when I was a vegetarian, and the reason is because I'm not eating.
Funny.
Right.
It is funny, and we have a hashtag on Instagram. A lot of ex-vegans like myself use this hashtag, more vegetables than a vegetarian, because often I'll share plates of food that I'm eating, and it's just packed with vegetables, and there's a little portion of meat. And coming from a vegan background, I started eating meat thinking of it as medicine. That was the only way that I could get over that hurdle of eating meat again. I really was opposed to killing animals and the ethical side of it, and I realized that if I got a small quantity of the highest quality ethically raised meat, that I could get behind that. And so some people might do paleo and eat a ton of meat, but other people don't. So like the different foods that we're eating on the elimination diet, and after reintroducing, seeing what works for someone, that protein level and how much meat they eat might be different person to person. And I felt like I went through a very restorative phase when I was first on the autoimmune protocol, and I ate a little bit more meat than I do now, just because I had been vegan for 10 years and I was nutritionally depleted. I needed iron, I needed B12, I needed zinc, I needed all these things that was in meat, and I felt so good when I ate meat that I was eating a little bit more then. But now I just kind of go with my gut, and it ebbs and flows with the season, and I don't think that you need to eat a lot of meat to successfully eat this way.
Perfect. Now, did you incorporate some supplements to heal your nutrient deficiencies, Mickey, or were you able to do that just by healing your gut and diet?
I tried so hard.
Did you supplement?
I worked with a nutritionist. Yeah, I worked with a nutritionist. I tried a lot of different forms, especially the iron just would not come up for me. And I started eating red meat, and in a month my numbers were normal. And it I know that for some people, especially people who choose to continue being vegan or vegetarian, supplements are a lifeline for them and they really need them. But when I was at my sickest and I started to come around to the idea that the nutrient piece was really a part of what I was struggling with, I tried really hard, but it just didn't produce the results that actually eating meat did for me. So I find that way more effective.
Oh, I agree. That's why I asked. So thank you. I couldn't have designed a better answer than that.
I gave it a try, and I feel bad. I'm contacted all the time by people who just cannot eat meat for whatever reason, and they're desperately asking me to say, just please tell me I'll be okay with supplements. And who knows, maybe it'll work for them, but my experience was just that the eating meat just blew the supplementation out of the water. Like now when I get labs back, and I have in the last few years a couple times come back on the lower end of iron, not like I was when I was super sick, but my doctor will say, oh, you should try an iron supplement, and I'll be like, nope, I'm going to go home and cook up some liver. Like, I know how this works.
Thank you, no. Oh, my goodness.
When you go home and cook up some liver, just for everybody listening, exactly how do you prepare that? Because everybody has this, liver.
And what type of liver?
Right.
What's your favorite liver recipe?
Okay.
Yes.
Chicken liver is milder tasting, but it doesn't have as much nutrients as beef liver. And so I've always gone for beef liver just because of that. That's what I discovered when I was super sick and I really needed iron and B12. It does not get any better than beef liver. So I find beef liver from pastured, grass-fed cows is a minimum. Obviously the liver is a filtration organ, but a lot of people fall into the misconception that it stores toxins. Toxins are actually stored in fat cells. So if you're eating fatty cuts of conventional meat, you're getting way more toxins than you are if you're even eating conventionally raised liver. So get the best source you can, hormone-free, grass-fed pastured. Liver is something that is so cheap. Farmers can't get rid of it because nobody wants it. So even if you go to your farmer's market, like I did when I was first starting my journey, I lived across the street from a weekly farmer's market in Seattle, which was like amazing and such a great resource for me. But there was this farm that I could not even afford their ground beef. It was so expensive because it was so high quality, but their liver was like $2.50 a pound. And so I would go across there and I would just buy a bunch of liver. And as a recovering vegan, I thought because the liver was so nutrient dense that I could actually get away with eating less meat by eating more nutrient dense liver. So that's another piece there. But how I cook it, so I like beef liver for that reason. Lamb liver is a little bit more pungent. Same thing with pork liver, but some people like the flavor. So if you're into that, great. The way I cook it is I have a recipe on my blog. You can Google bacon beef liver pate. That'll come up. It's also in my book. And it has converted many people who do not like liver, like myself, into being liver lovers. What I do is I cook a few slices of bacon in like a skillet, and I cook them until they're crispy, and I leave all the fat in the pan. And then I cook a whole onion, a ton of herbs, something like maybe a quarter of a cup of fresh chopped herbs. You can use anything. Rosemary, thyme, oregano, sage, marjoram, whatever you've got. I usually go out in the garden and I just take a big sampling of what I have, and the more the better. And then I add in slices of maybe a pound to a pound and a half of beef liver that are kind of sliced thin. Beef liver is a little bit gross to handle, just warning you. But I think for me, it's a realistic, going from not eating animals to eating animals, like it was really important for me to be in touch with the fact that, what I'm eating used to be alive, and give it the respect that it deserves. And I think handling it is respectful, and realizing, it's a little bit bloodier and grosser than muscle meat, but I don't know, it grounded me in that way. I don't know if that makes sense. So, that this is my least favorite part of actually creating the pate, is actually unpackaging the liver, rinsing it off, slicing it into smaller bits. But I do it because it really makes me feel good to eat this meal. So then I'll saute it in those onions and that fat and those herbs just until it's barely pink inside. You can test it with a knife. And then I stick all of that in a blender or a food processor with half a cup of coconut oil, which is a lot of coconut oil, but that's what you need to really get it to be creamy, and blend it up. And then I crumble that bacon that I cooked in the beginning, and I mix that in, and it just tastes delicious. It's watered down, so to say, with onion and coconut oil and all the herbs and that bacon flavor. So it really doesn't taste like you're eating straight liver at that point. And so that's how I eat it.
Okay. Yeah, we had Sarah on a few weeks ago, and she was talking about her burgers, her liver burgers, right? So we have 2 recipes we have to try now, Tiff.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So I have a couple quick questions.
Eating liver. Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Mickey.
I was just saying, for people that are kind of turning up their nose and like, I don't know if I really want to do that. For me, I can't even eat like a tiny bit of this pate too late in the day because I won't sleep. It gives me that much energy. So when I am feeling tired and run down, what I do is I make a big batch. Maybe I'll make 2 pounds of the pate, and then I'll put it in 3 or 4 little jars because I can't eat a lot of it. It makes me hyper. And I freeze 3 of them, and then I just have 1 of them, and I just eat a couple little spoonfuls, maybe on plantain crackers or apple slices or something. And for an afternoon snack, when I'm feeling low, that is just picks me up.
That's
interesting.
Awesome. I have never had liver, ever. I've never had it. Is that crazy? I'm 47 years old. I've never had liver.
Try it.
Do it.
To me.
You need to be a liver lover, like Mickey.
My husband's grandma used to make it once a month, like it was she's of course old European, and it was kind of like a mandatory minimum.
They use all the parts of the animal. Yeah,
time.
They use all the parts. They make stocks and broths, and they cook the organs, and the whole family eats them. We don't have that in our culture anymore.
And you know what? I honestly believe that is an enormous health ding. I think our because I was never allowed to eat dark meat when I was little, and what I mean by it is like on a turkey or chicken or whatever, because there were, for my parents came from the 70s, there was too much fat in there. You know what I mean? So I only ate the breast meat, and I think to myself, scratching my head now, and I'm like, God, wonder how much better my childhood would have been if I was able to have a little fat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
For sure.
Okay, so 2 quick questions about the liver. One is, are you a fan of the powdered liver for people who, and being a former vegetarian, I totally get what you mean about the animals that sustain my life. I totally get it. I have way more respect now than I ever could have ever wanted to have had when I was vegetarian. But so I totally get that. It was a resonation moment for me. But for the people who are just like, there's no way I could handle that. How do you like the powdered liver? You know how they have the powdered liver that you just scoop into?
Yeah, I think it's a good option. I think that it's cost prohibitive for people that were like me, that maybe really need that nutrition. I think the likelihood that you're going to actually be able to get enough in, I think it's either going to be really expensive, or you're going to be trying to figure out how to make this liver powder taste good enough when you just cook liver. It's the literally the cheapest meat you can buy for the highest quality. I kind of think it's a no-brainer. Something that I would suggest before trying supplements for people that really don't want to be eating it as a pate or cooked straight is actually you can freeze it and then run it through the shredding blade on a food processor, or shred it with a box grater, and then put it in ice cube tray, so like easily portioned.
Oh, wow.
Refreeze it, pop those out, put them in a little baggie, so it's like a tablespoon, and anytime you use ground meat, just grab one of those liver cubes and let it thaw and mix it in with your ground beef or your ground pork or your ground chicken if you're making chili or burgers or whatever. Throw that in there, and that'll add that nutrition to whatever you're cooking, but you're not going to taste it.
Oh, Mickey's tip for the day. I love that.
Totally.
Fantastic.
And that kind of hits my second question, which was, can you just take the liver and throw it in a soup? You know what I mean?
I wouldn't throw a lot of it in the soup because it's very pungent. It's liver. It has. I don't want to discourage anyone from eating it if they haven't eaten it before, but it has a very strong flavor. And with a soup, sometimes it will concentrate that flavor, and it'll make the soup taste a certain way that if you're not used to liver, it might magnify it. So
right.
I would throw maybe one of those cubes in a soup. I wouldn't cook actual liver as a soup because I think it would just taste too strong. The broth would taste strong. The thing about the pate is you know that it's a strong flavor, but you eat just a tiny little bite on something else that kind of neutralizes that flavor. So I like using Granny Smith apples or, like a plantain chip or something to kind of counteract that.
I like the cube. I like the cube theory. And where is your favorite place to get this? What's Mickey's stamp on place to get this good grass-fed, ethically raised liver? Do you have a favorite place where people can?
So, the best bet is going to be your local farmer. So, eatwild.com is a great resource that people can go to find a farm near them. I'm always contacted by people that say, I live in a food desert, there's no farms near me, and then I look up their state or whatever online, and there might be a lot of farms around them. So I actually get my cow from a neighbor that lives 2 doors down from me. I'm fortunate to live in Oregon where we have lots of agriculture, and that's common. But that's the best source. If you can find someone local that treats their animals well, for me, having the animals slaughtered on the property as opposed to going to a facility is really important to me because I care about the animal welfare. Another option can be some of these online retailers. So there's U.S. Wellness Meats. I believe they sell the highest quality all different meat products, but I believe that they have liver. They also have some sausages and some liverwurst, some organ meats that are worked into other products that are pre-made, but from really good ingredients. You guys can check that out too.
That's a great tip.
All right, we're both like looking it up at the same time. We're like, okay,
Eat Wild. Okay. I'm like checking it out. Okay, great. This is awesome. Love it.
Okay,
and
so
even grocery stores have like Whole Foods has liver sometimes. If they don't have it, you can ask them. Even at a nice store like Whole Foods, you're going to get a higher quality going directly to your farmer.
Right. And then I'm of course obviously working at the farmers market. I'm a big farmers market person because you actually get to meet these people. There's an energy exchange that goes on that says, I really like these people. I love the person that makes this or grows this or, it's just, it's a good energy exchange. I love farmers markets. So you get to meet the people. That's just better for me, right? Yeah. It's just, I don't know. I like it. It makes your goods that much better and your veggies taste that much better, and knowing that you're supporting local families, and I just dig it. I'm a big farmers market person.
I do too.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about, if you don't mind, cross-contamination and how do you, if you're doing the elimination diet, Mickey, and you have, a family that's not necessarily going to jump on board with you right away, it's a baby step thing. How do you keep your kitchen safe from
so
cross-contamination?
Yep. You want to think about the foods that are going to cause the biggest problem from a cross-contamination standpoint, and it's gluten. And so for anyone in a mixed diet household, what I suggest is having a couple sets of really basic things, so you don't have to have a complete second kitchen, but just having a separate cutting board, maybe a designated knife and some utensils, to stir in the pot. And then if there's any cooking items that are going to be heavily glutened, don't share them. So the toaster is off limits to you while you're doing AIP and probably ever. Don't use your toaster. If you have a toaster oven, that's another area of cross-contamination. If you have a pot where your family commonly makes pasta, or a strainer that they use to strain the pasta, don't try to share these things. If you can pick up a second strainer, or maybe a second pot, a second cutting board, and then just say, maybe label a knife and say, this is the knife that Mom's using for her food, and these are the knives that everyone else can use. That's where I would start. Another area that people make mistakes with cross-contamination is actually sponges. So for me, I've actually been dairied a lot when I lived in a house with roommates where my roommates were gluten-free, but they actually had dairy, and they were cleaning dishes with the same sponge, and we didn't have a dishwasher for everything, so I was eating off of plates that they used with a sponge, and it caused me problems, and so that's something that if you're very sensitive, you might want to consider maybe getting a different colored sponge and separating that. If you have a dishwasher, that's great. Usually dishwashers are great at thoroughly cleaning. If you're doing hand washing, sometimes you have to be really careful. Obviously, if your family eats something and then that plate doesn't get cleaned very well, just kind of make some assessments there. But just kind of using your brain to kind of figure out maybe how your family uses the kitchen, what else is going on there that has gluten, what areas that's in, and how you can troubleshoot to kind of keep that a safe setup for you while you do the elimination diet.
Great.
Now, another question is, how important is compliance in this 30 days?
Very. So you need to do it 100% compliance. That's a very hard point for a lot of people, and the reason is because you're truly clearing the slate from an immune perspective, which this isn't 80-20, we're trying paleo most of the time and then cheat meals. There's no cheat meals with AIP. Right. You really need to do it at 100% compliance to let all of that inflammation go down so you can clear that slate and see those reactions to those foods. So my suggestion is, if you think that you're going to have a hard time with 100% compliance, don't do it until you can really prepare and plan and set yourself up for success for 100% compliance. So, for instance, don't start the elimination diet a week before you go on an international vacation, or maybe don't do it while you're moving, or, if holidays is a really big thing for you. I've had lots of clients do this during the holidays, and they're fine because they set themselves up with their own food, or they are cooking and they're providing the food for everyone, so they can provide themselves parts of a meal that they can eat. But for some people, that's a deal breaker. They have to go to their families or whatever. So right. Be conscious about when you do it and setting yourself up for success, which is one of my favorite things to teach people, is like meal planning and batch cooking. You don't just post a list on your fridge and start tomorrow. You have to think about the things that you're going to have to change, and you might want to wade into it in a phased approach instead of doing it cold turkey. So you might want to just start with gluten and go gluten-free, and then in a couple weeks take dairy out, and then in a couple weeks take eggs out, and do it backwards. Of course, the whole protocol gets a little longer because you're not in elimination sooner.
Right, you're extending that elimination by 30 days, right, when you add that new food in.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So,
right.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
so,
when you take away, when you take away the food, you're adding an extra 30 days.
My partner has a very successful 6-week program. It's called SAD to AIP in 6, and she actually has a group starting in a couple weeks. But what she does is they take out one food every week for 6 weeks. And then at the end of the 6 weeks, they are fully compliant on the elimination diet, but they just took more time to do it in a stable way so that they understood the meal planning and the batch cooking. And with that one food, finding replacements, taking a whole week to figure out, okay, if I'm not using butter and I'm not creaming my coffee, what am I going to do? You have a whole week to just solve that one problem instead of also saying, well, now I've changed my breakfast and I'm not having my toast or my sandwich and I'm not eating the nut butter. And, it's just like too much for some people. So doing it slowly can really help.
Definitely, because there's a lot of people who are apprehensive. So doing it slow definitely helps for some, for a lot probably.
Yeah,
I think for me, it would be just like having it all laid out. Okay, this is what you're going to eat. Make sure you get it cooked. This is your shopping list. You know what I mean?
Yeah, meal planning.
Definitely.
Meal planning
definitely.
and batch cooking.
For me, it would be what you can have.
Are really.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Now, tell us a little bit more, Mickey, about batch cooking. Define that for me. What do you mean by batch cooking?
Yeah, great question. This is my favorite topic. So batch cooking is when you buy a bunch of ingredients and you have a plan to cook for the future. So I did this a couple days ago. I got out a huge soup pot and I basically tripled a recipe. And I cooked a few different recipes, but the biggest one I tripled, and it's because I'm going through a busy phase in my life, and I don't want to be cooking 3 meals a day. I mean, who does in normal life anyways? And when I'm done with that tripled recipe, I portion it into wide mouth ball glass jars with BPA-free lids. I label everything with the meal and the date, and then I freeze like 90% of it. And then in a week or two or a month or whenever I'm like, oh man, I forgot, about dinner tonight or whatever, I just pull out that AIP chili that I've made that's got ground beef, it's got a little liver cube, it's got bone broth and rutabaga and carrots and onions and herbs, and it's all beautifully cooked, and all I have to do is dump it into a pan, heat it up, and dinner's ready. So batch cooking is something that sets you up for success in the future. It takes a little bit of time and planning to kind of set that up like in a session, but what I'll do is I'll have maybe 1 or 2 things cooking on the stove top, so like a soup or a stew, maybe I'm braising something, maybe I'm like in my grill pan just making some chicken breasts or some steak or something, and then in the oven I'll usually have 1 or 2 sheets of something roasting, so maybe I'll do like roast mixed vegetables or root vegetables or chicken, and I just cook a ton of food all at the same time over like 2 or 3 hours, and then I take it all apart, I put it all in portion-sized containers. Sometimes I freeze it. Sometimes it's just for the week. But then that week, everything's prepped. Everything's cooked. You don't have to do so much work every day.
I like that. Now, does your family eat paleo? Do they eat, well, I shouldn't even say paleo or whatever, but does your family eat the same way as you?
Yeah, so my husband initially, he was omnivorous and he was eating whatever, and it was a little bit of a struggle. But since he saw the changes in me, he started just saying, you know what, I'll just eat what you eat. We won't bring gluten to the house. Occasionally he'll bring something that he can eat that I can't into the house, but it's never something that's going to cause a cross-contamination issue because he knows how important that is to me. And I'm really lucky to have him so supportive. But over the years, he's actually realized through eating the way that I do at home, he has some food sensitivities, and some of them don't line up with mine. So he's actually really sensitive to like potatoes. And like once when I reintroduced potatoes, I made a potato leek soup, and I was so happy. And he was the one that had a reaction to it. And he was like,
oh, wow.
I think I'm allergic to potatoes, or I think I'm sensitive to them. And so that's been really interesting to see him understand that even though he doesn't have an autoimmune disease, there might be foods out there that don't work great for him, you know. So mostly what we do is the things that he adds things on that I don't eat. So he might like have beer, or he never brings bread into the house, but I think of them as add-ons, you know, like he might have his kind of addition, but I don't really cook him special food. We eat all the same stuff, if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
And this type of food, people might be like, well, I don't know if my husband or my kids are going to like this. Kids are one thing, because once they start eating a certain way, sometimes it can be hard to open their mind to like vegetables or not processed foods. But usually husbands are pretty excited about like prime rib, or, you know,
right.
like short ribs, or like roast chicken. And, you know, the vegetables sometimes can be a little harder, but like really this is good home cooking. This is not weird food, you know?
Right. My kids just like things that smell good. I know that sounds terrible, but like when we're cooking, and, you know, they'll always go like, oh my gosh, it smells so good, Mom, you know. So I just won't tell them there's liver in there.
That's great. That's a great place to start. You know, like when you said that, the thing that I thought of that I've made recently that smells so good is cranberry braised short ribs. I have a recipe on my blog and my book where it's a great fall recipe, and you braise short ribs with a bunch of herbs and rosemary and cranberries, and it's just like that tart and sweet, and it smells so good when you cook. I bet your kids would love that.
They do. They love the smell. I mean, they're aromatherapy kids, you know what I mean? So they're like, everything has a smell to it. Oh, Mom, smell this. Mom, oh, smell this.
Smell this.
A plant.
You have trained them well. You have trained them well.
Oh, my God. Well, they grew up with it. So, I mean, I think they're, you know, and especially baking, you know, I mean, when you're baking something, the cinnamon, and it's very therapeutic. I mean, that is what I refer to as traditional aromatherapy. I think a lot of health consequences have also come from the fact that we don't cook anymore. So we're not inhaling all these amazing herbs and vegetables and all these different things like we normally do. I mean, when you think about your grandma or whatever, right, it's almost always associated with some type of cooking aromatherapy. You know what I mean? Like, oh, that reminds me of my grandma, or this recipe, or, you know, Christmas or the holidays or the fall or whatever, you know. I mean, it's really a much more ingrained therapy than we give it credit for. That's just my 2 cents on that one.
Well, plus it starts the you know, process. When you smell the food, then your brain starts to go, okay, and then your salivary gland, you know, I mean, it starts the process. So
for sure.
It makes sense.
And if my husband is grumpy and he smells something that smells good, it instantly shifts his mood. I'm like, whew. The kids are like, Mom, quick, make something. Oh, my gosh, that's so silly. Okay, Mickey, what are some of your favorite recipes? What are the recipes that you were like, nailed it?
Okay,
nailed it.
That chili for sure. The chili I was just talking about, the recipe is on my site if you Google AIP Magic Chili. I call it Magic Chili because it doesn't have nightshade family vegetables. It doesn't have beans or legumes in it, but it tastes amazing. There's over 100 comments on that post saying from people that are just like, oh my God, this is amazing. My kids loved it. My husband loved it. And it even has that kind of reddish look to it because I use beets. And if you don't tell anyone that they're beets, you probably won't have anyone notice. But it's a beautiful, beautiful dish, and it's so easy to make. It's quick. It just takes a half hour to make.
That totally looks like chili. I just Googled it.
Yeah, it looks exactly like chili. I've had people write me being like, "You're falsifying your stuff online. That has tomatoes in it," and it's like, no, it doesn't have tomatoes. So I make that at least once a week, and I batch cook it all the time. It freezes really well. It keeps in the fridge really well. That's a big staple for me. The pate, also bacon beef liver pate, that one is a staple and has great reviews. Something that I also make a lot, I have a few different variations of this recipe in my books and on my blog, chicken soup. Chicken soup is one of those things that it's really easy to make. If you get a whole chicken, you can get that really good meat at the best price because, you're not paying someone to kind of take off the different parts and whatever. And then you get to use all of the bones. You make kind of a bone broth when you make chicken soup. So there are a million ways to make chicken soup. I usually make it in my Instant Pot. It takes 17 minutes to cook at pressure, so it takes a little time to get up to pressure.
Wow.
But I just throw it in there with a bunch of water, a little bit of cider vinegar, all the vegetables, and whatever vegetables I have. So, carrots, onions, parsnips, sweet potatoes, whatever. And then it cooks super fast, and then I take all the meat off the carcass, throw it back in the pot, and then I save that carcass to make broth. So, you really can maximize that protein source. So chicken soup is something. And if you guys don't have an Instant Pot, you haven't heard of the Instant Pot, get one.
I have not heard of an Instant Pot.
Oh, my gosh.
No, my chicken soup takes 3 hours.
Oh, my gosh. The Instant Pot is going to blow your mind. It's totally going to blow your mind. It's an electric pressure cooker, slow cooker that's countertop, and it does everything. So it can also saute in there. So if you're making like a chicken soup, I'll throw in some onions and some coconut oil. I'll saute them, maybe add some garlic and some herbs. And then all I have to do is fill it with water, put the chicken, put all the vegetables in, lock the lid, put high pressure, 17 minutes, and then I come back in 40 or so minutes because it has to get up to pressure. But what it'll do is raise the pressure, cook for the 17 minutes, beep when it's off. You can quick release or let it slow release, and dinner's ready. It's like this incredible invention. I love it.
Oh, love that.
Wow,
okay.
I was going to say, and I was just going to ask you before you mentioned the Instant Pot, I think I'm going to have to get an Instant Pot too, but being as though I'm at dance usually, my 3 girls are dancers, so I'm there for literally like 3 to 4 hours. And so crock pots are my best friend. Do you have any
so the Instant Pot
favorite crock pots?
A crock pot. It's also a crock pot. So you can literally put your chicken soup in there the exact same way that I just described and just click slow cook 8 hours on medium or whatever you want. And it'll be done when you're ready to come home.
Is there only one Instant Pot, Mickey, or do you have a favorite brand
it's
or
Instant Pot? It's this company, there are a lot of coffees out there.
Okay, got it.
It's smart about it.
They basically took over the whole market because it was designed by an engineer that I think they just wanted to solve the problem of why are pressure cookers so hard to use. And there's so many out there, but with a pressure cooker, it cooks everything fast, but you have to kind of babysit it and you have to kind of know how to use it. What if we created a pressure cooker that was in its own little thing and electronic and did its own thing and you didn't have to worry about it? And so they solved that problem. And every time, I think Amazon usually puts them on heavy sale like Black Friday and on Prime Day, and it's always the highest selling thing on Amazon. People love them.
Right? And
it's
not crazy.
It's not crazy.
My KitchenAid blender. It looks like it's $130 and something like that.
Yeah, but when Amazon puts it on sale, they're like $60 or $70.
Oh, really?
They fly off the shelf. Yeah, so if you want one now, I think it's worth $130. But if you really don't have a lot of budget for cooking stuff, wait until the sale because they go on super sale maybe 2 or 3 times a year. I usually buy 2 or 3 and I give them to people for different gifts and holidays and stuff because everyone loves them.
And it does, but I'm going to have to read. I'm on InstantPot.com. I just pulled it up. And now, is it bigger than it looks? You can still fit a whole chicken in there?
Yep. So
it looks like it's kind of potish looking rather than like a crock pot that's a little bit bigger, around.
It's taller. It's taller and skinnier. And the 5-quart, I have the 5-quart and the 6-quart. because I'm crazy. And both of them fit a chicken. I find the bigger one makes more soup and more vegetables. So when I make a chicken in the 5-quart, I'll take some of the meat and then I'll use that to make like chicken salad or something because it's too much meat for the amount of liquid that goes in the 5-quart.
Gotcha.
But in the 6-quart, it's perfect.
Gotcha. All right. Instant Pot gets the Mickey Trescott stamp. I know, right?
And I'm not affiliated with them in any way. So
I know you could
I just
be.
love their product.
No, you're just I know. You're just one of those people that believe in it, and I love that. To me, those are the best kinds. I don't get any kickbacks. I just really love this.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Well,
okay, so
I was just going to say we love talking to you, but we could talk all day. But I want to know what you're eating today. I want to know what's on the plan for Mickey to eat today. What you had for breakfast, or
I love that.
I had it.
Yeah, so I had my chili for breakfast, so we've already talked about that. I'm keep it simple with my food. I don't usually I'm not eating like crazy gourmet stuff all the time. I practice what I preach and I eat what I talk about all the time. So I had that chili for breakfast. I batch cooked it on Sunday. I froze a bunch of it, and then we've had the leftovers in the fridge for a couple days, and that's what I had for breakfast. For lunch, I'm going to grill some salmon and have a salad. So usually lunch is something that I put together pretty quick. And then dinner, I'm going to cook a chicken. I'm actually haven't thought about what I'm going to do with it yet, but I have a deep freezer because I buy meat from my local farmers, and I have a bunch of meat. So what I'll do is I'll have my husband go out and pick out the meat for the week, and then I'll just put something together with what vegetables we have for dinners. So I've got a chicken in there. I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet, full disclosure, but maybe soup.
Well, we want a picture. We want to know.
Okay, I'll put it on Instagram.
Okay. There we go. Okay, so I have to ask you one last question. The on the run. How do you stay elimination diet AIP on the run? If you're just like a on the go person all the time, do you carry your meals with you, or what are Mickey's tips for on the run and AIP? Yeah,
you can bring meals with you. So there's this great little heater, Hot Logic heating pad thing that you can get an adapter for a car. So I've used this on a plane before in an international trip. I've also used it in the car. And it's just a little glass Pyrex, fits right into it, and you plug it in, and it's very low heat, but it'll heat up your meal. So if you have like a lunch or something you want it to be warm, or you're sitting at your desk at work and you brought your lunch with you, you can take it out of the fridge and just put it in this little heating pad, and it'll warm up your soup or whatever you've got. So I definitely recommend that. I use that all the time. If you're traveling, what I do when I have a busy day, just when I'm home and I'm around, I eat a really good breakfast. So I start by kind of planning ahead just by eating a lot of protein, a lot of fat. If I know that I'm going to be out, maybe I'm going to have a late lunch or something, because I prefer to eat at home. I prefer not to eat out. I will bring a snack with me, but I will set myself up for success and just have an extra big breakfast. And then as far as snacks, I like Epic bars. I don't know if you guys have had those or have used those, but they're pemmican bars. The cranberry bison one is AIP. So I usually carry those in my purse if I'm out, and I might sometimes get home at 3 and have a late lunch. And then actually my blood sugar is so stable these days that sometimes I don't even eat lunch. Sometimes I'll just have a big snack. If I've got liver pate in the fridge, like I said, it gives me a lot of energy. Have that with like half an apple slices or something like that. That'll carry me for dinner. Some people can't get away with that. I know many people still suffer from blood sugar dysregulation issues, and I don't recommend going too long without food if you get hypoglycemic or something like that. But that's what I do. Breakfast and dinner are usually my best meals. Lunch is a little bit lighter.
All right.
Wow. I just want to come over and or maybe just go grocery shopping with you.
Well, if you guys are ever in Oregon, hit me up.
Okay, one more thing because I have to ask. Okay, favorite, because I know you've already given us the chili, but favorite breakfast recipe, favorite lunch recipe, favorite dinner recipe. So three more favorite Mickey recipes.
Okay, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but soup for breakfast rocks my world. In my most recent book, the Autoimmune Wellness Handbook, I have a green breakfast soup recipe that is out of this world. It's a chicken soup. No, you don't have to just eat it for breakfast. People are like, why is that called a breakfast soup? And it's because I eat it for breakfast all the time, and I associate breakfast with it. But it's great, and I take some of the greens and raw, and I blend them up and then add them back to the soup, and it just has a beautiful color. It's bright. It tastes really good. I love it. Lunches, I just love having a big salad for lunch. Like I just said, I'm usually not very hungry for lunch. Lunch is the lightest meal of the day for me. Sometimes I won't even have any meat, so I usually will take leftover or quickly cooked protein and just whatever's in the garden, whatever's in my fridge. I just make a big salad. It usually involves avocado, green onions, fresh Meyer lemons, or whatever in the dressing, just whatever I'm inspired by there. Dinner, I love to make my really good hearty meal for dinner. So like in the summer right now, I've been doing a lot of like sear roasted or grilled pork chops. We just got a quarter of a pig, and the pork is just really good. So we'll do steak, same kind of drill, can cook it both the same way. Now that we're transitioning into fall, I might do more like oven roasted recipes. So there's a sage braised chicken thighs recipe in my cookbook. Anyways, I'm giving you guys way more than my favorite. I clearly don't have a favorite. I just like food.
I love it.
We love it.
Well, and I have to tell people,
So,
I'm
yeah.
a huge fan. If you're a salad person like me, I love salads, and I'm a huge fan of the Primal Kitchen salad dressings. They're just
Me too.
smoking. I love them. They're very good. And those are AIP, right?
Yeah, super. You know, some of the flavors are AIP, some aren't. So I would definitely check ingredients. And that goes with any companies. You know, there's a lot of really high integrity companies out there making great ingredients for paleo, but just because it's paleo doesn't mean it's AIP.
Doesn't mean it's...
So like black pepper, mustard seeds, there's some things in some of those dressings that you'll want to be cautious of if you're doing the elimination diet. But there are plenty of recipes online for dressings you can make.
For dressing.
I think, yeah, like Tessemae's might have some. I make my own. I just love making dressings. So that's one thing that I'll back.
I just need recipes. Mickey, I just need recipes. I just need to follow a recipe. I'm good with that. You know, buy this, this, and this, and make it this way. I'm good with making my own stuff.
Check out our website. You know,
I am.
Yeah.
I am.
We have over 250 free recipes there. So we got you covered. There's lots.
Okay, so one more question. I'm
Tiff.
sorry, and I promise I'll let you go. Okay. What do you have like a top 5 myths of AIP? Because I mean, that was a great one. There's a difference between paleo and AIP. That's a big difference.
I love your questions. This is great. Okay, top 5 myths. AIP is forever. We busted that one, right?
Yes, we did.
We busted that one.
Yep.
Second myth. AIP is just about eliminations. It's not. It's about what you add in and what you replace. So we didn't really talk about nutrient density, but I've got a bunch of posts on my site about that. You're not replacing the foods you're eliminating with boring, bland, not nutrient-dense foods. You're trying to add in those things like the organ meats, the bone broths, the fermented foods, the vegetables. You're trying to replace with the highest nutrient density, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Another misconception about AIP is that healing is linear. So just because you do it means that you're going to get success, and just because someone else did it, and they have the same disease as you, or they're the same age as you, or they have the same symptoms as you, is that your journey is going to line up with theirs. It might not. You might have some troubleshooting. That's okay. You might have peaks and valleys. We've all had our ups and downs. It doesn't just go up, you know?
We love that. Trust me that you said that.
Another, I would say a fourth myth is that in a similar vein, people tolerate certain foods based on a disease or whatever, just because, I have Hashimoto's and I don't tolerate dairy, and you might have Hashimoto's and you might tolerate dairy. It just because someone else, it works for them doesn't mean it's going to work for you. And then I would say what is the last myth? I did good with 4 and then I got
We can stick with 4.
We can stick with 4.
Okay.
Stick with 4.
We can stick with 4. No, I love that.
Okay. You guys are funny. I like this interview. I like being on my toes. But I think in closing, the last thing that I would say too is that no one can guarantee what's going to happen for you. You never really know until you try. And a lot of people are scared to try because they kind of want a guarantee or they want to know what's going to happen, but we never know what's going to happen. And the most beautiful things in life happen when you take a step and you're vulnerable and you don't know what's going to happen. And that's why I love this process, because it's people think like calling it a diet is not really addressing what it is. It's really an opportunity to learn from yourself and your body, and can produce a big shift, not just in the food you eat. It can change your life, your relationships, your career, and all of that. So I don't know.
We can call that number 5. AIP is not a diet. How about that?
AIP is not a diet.
I love
not
that.
a diet, right?
Yeah.
Well, before Tiffany jumps in with another question, and I know we have to let you go. We could talk to you all day. What is new and exciting on the horizon for Mickey Trescott? Anything you got coming up? Are you taking time off? What are you doing?
I'm taking time off. So I'm actually, the new and exciting thing for me is not having a next thing. I've spent the last 4 years, writing books and coaching and writing another book and working on the website. And, I've done a lot. And I think that I need to be respectful of my body and kind of what it's been put through. And, I'm grateful for the energy that I have. And I feel like I still have a fire lit, but I'm not going to be able to make it if I don't take a step back and take some time off. So last week, we did a bundle with the community where we bundled a bunch of our books together, and we raised $20,000 for charity. And so I'm just kind of coming off of that high, feeling really grateful to be a part of a community with a bunch of people that are just this AIP community. You guys just plug into it. It's just full of really incredible people doing amazing things. And I don't feel like I need to be burning the candle at both ends constantly. So I'm really excited to take a step back and kind of sit in that gratitude and rest a little bit.
That is so important. Awesome. That is amazing. And I'm so glad we asked you that so that you could give that answer, because that's really, really important. I mean, just being and just like you said, sitting in your gratitude, it's fabulous. So thank you for sharing. Yeah, I just think
enjoyed this so much.
We're just taking a deep breath for you. It's fantastic.
Thanks.
You've been going and doing, and of course, just be, breathe, do it, love it.
We love it.
Yeah, because it's illness. I got into this because of my illness, and I know what happens if I don't take care of myself. And we talk a lot about the stress management and time off, and the life of a author and online business owner is very demanding, and the expectation is to constantly be having a next thing. And I just really encourage all of my friends who are in this community and in this industry to really try and take care of themselves, because it's not worth getting sick again. And we do our best work, I think, when we feel rejuvenated and restored and creative and inspired and happy.
It's so interesting that that you were able to see that too, that you were able to look at it and go, this is what I need. This is what I need right now. This is what I'm going to do. I just got to see Magdalena and Isabella and a few other amazing people this past weekend, and I talked to Isabella, and she said, Isabella went. She said, I'm doing the same thing. That's what she's doing. She's going to sit in the gratitude. She's been very busy. She had her book and she had the summit and things. And so I think I respect that you're just owning and honoring yourself.
I think, are you still there? Did I lose everybody?
I'm here. No, we're here.
I think that's really important for people to know too. That Dan and I talk about it all the time. You have to listen to your body. If your body says it's chill time, we have to listen to the fact that it's chill time, and that's what prevents the autoimmune from flaring again. And it's very important to be plugged into the body and all of its messaging. I think that is a really significant factor in staying well.
Mm-hmm. And it's great that you're doing it. Great that you're doing it. And great that you saw that. I love it. So we're not always go, go, go. We're not.
Right.
Even though it may seem like it. We're not always go, go, go. We need to stop and smell the roses, so to speak. Well, Mickey, this has been absolutely a blast. We have had such a great time. We've been wanting to talk to you for a long time, so thank you so much for joining us today. We will share how everyone can find you, and, of course, everybody probably already knows where to find you, but we'll share that as soon as we let you go. But we've had a great, great time, and we look forward to talking to you again.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for having me. This has been really fun, and I really enjoyed the questions, and I hope I didn't scare anyone from eating liver. I promise that's not the only thing about AIP, and definitely reach out to me and plug into the AIP community if you guys are interested in the elimination diet or you need support.
Well, that's so great. I'm gonna think of that from now on. That Mickey's a liver lover, and I'm gonna join. I'm gonna jump on the bandwagon. I love it. Okay. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Bye, guys.
Bye, Mickey. Thank you. Oh, my gosh. She seems so amazingly sweet, and I'm looking at the...
She is adorable. I just want to put her in my pocket. I
love this. The green, I have like 15 windows open. I'm looking at the green breakfast soup. That sounds so good. I'm totally doing that. And my kids would eat that. My kids would totally eat that. And then on her AutoimmuneWellness.com, which is where you can find all things Mickey and autoimmune wellness and AIP and recipes and blogging and meal plans. And I'm looking at vanilla energy bites.
Yummy.
There's like so many things. Her chili looks amazing. I'm in.
Her pate sounds fantastic.
I will do this. Huh?
Her pate sounds fantastic. Doesn't
it?
I thought it did. I thought it sounded really interesting.
And I love the way, she talks about, doing it when you're not stressed. So I think what I'm going to do is just, incorporate a bunch of recipes now, and then I'm going to do the 30-day AIP after the holidays. That would cause me so much stress to try to attempt to do that now for 30 days, coming into September, October, November, December. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It just wouldn't. I would be so stressed doing it. You know what I mean? Which is kind of the antithesis of doing it in the first place. So why would you do that? So I love the fact that she said that. You got to, it's just like coaching anything else. You got to set yourself up, for success to do it. So I'm going to start fiddling with some recipes.
Okay, can't wait to hear. As always, a very big thank you to our listeners. We really enjoy doing the show, and if you enjoy it as much as we do, we would love a review on iTunes. You can find it, of course, by going to iTunes, but there's a link on thyroidradio.com. Scroll down and just leave us a little comment. And you can always download and listen to all the shows, podcasts on iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play. We're pretty much everywhere. You can take us on your run or in the car with you or whatever you want. So you can find us anywhere.
Absolutely. And just in case anyone missed it, you can, again, find all things Mickey Trescott at autoimmunewellness.com. Of course, please be sure to check out Thyroid Nation Essentials at thyroidnation.com. Just wonderful, clean, preservative, synthetic-free skincare, some handy inhalers for helping with cognition and different things. But honestly, nothing's going to replace nutrition. I think this is awesome. But these things help you avoid additional toxins that can cause additional problems, right? So make sure to check out Thyroid Nation Essentials at thyroidnation.com.
And follow us on Facebook and all the social media platforms that you're on if you'd like. And check out the Hoshies and Grays Facebook group. We list all the upcoming guests and the past shows, and you can listen to the show there. And there's lots of questions and lots of people there. So you can join in with. The little lady just beeped in and she scared me. She said, "You have 90 seconds left," in her British voice.
Oh, my gosh.
So sorry about that.
That's okay. Of course, Dana, and I most importantly always want to remind you that wellness is a journey and takes continual maintenance and evaluation. Pay attention and listen to what it's telling you.
Listen to your body. This is Dana, your Thyroid Nation Gringatika.
And Tiffany Mladnich.
Bringing the collective voice of thyroid thrivers worldwide so that together, united, we heal. Thanks, guys. Next week we have Dr. Kellyanne Petrucci, and the show will be on Thursday, special day and time just for her. So we'll see you then.
All right. Have a good week.